Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Forge of Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Alex Ooley, and this is episode 164 of the Forge of Freedom. So, first of all, Happy New Year to everyone. This is the first episode of the new year, and this is also, I'm recording this Wednesday, January 8th, 2025. This is the second year of the Forge of Freedom. The first episode was released January 8th, 2023. So the date I'm recording this is 2 years, the second anniversary of the Forge of Freedom. So thanks to all of you for tuning in over the last 2 years or whenever you found us. I'm glad you did if it was more recently. And I hope that you continue to tune in to future episodes and continue to find value and thought-provoking information from the podcast. This year, I'm going to be making a concerted effort to have more regular firearms-related content. We got away from the Monday gun day because that was we were doing 2 episodes a week, and frankly, that was just too time-consuming for me, having had a child who just turned 1. So we cut back a little bit there, but then got away from the firearms related content or firearm specific content. And I want to be sure that we bring more of that to the show in the coming year. With that being said, I'd also like to draw your attention to a podcast. I was a guest on the Firearm Trainers Podcast with Rob Beckman recently, and that episode was just released yesterday, where we discussed self-defense or defense against non-human threats. And I'll link to that in the show notes. But again, if you search for Firearm Trainers Podcast in any podcast listening platform, you should be able to find it there. It's called Firearm Trainers Podcast for American Firearms Instructors, and the host is Rob Beckman. In fact, it's one of the most popular firearms related podcasts. I don't know the exact ranking, but it's in the top single digit percentile range in terms of popularity for firearms podcasts. So I think you'll enjoy that episode, and I'd encourage you to check out his other content as well. He has some excellent guests on his podcast. All right. So with that being said, I've got an article to share with you today. Don't have much original content for you. I'll have a little bit of commentary, but I've got an article from Jeffrey Tucker. As you all know, I really enjoy Jeffrey Tucker's writing. I enjoy, along with Lawrence Reed and others, but Jeffrey Tucker certainly near the top of my go-to writers that I read on a regular basis. And he had an article that I'd given some thought to myself, but I'd never really heard anybody else articulate it. At least I hadn't in quite a while. And it's something that, I don't know, I appreciate about experiencing seasons. And by seasons, I mean seasons of the year, fall, winter, spring, and summer. And the article I've got here is from the Epic Times, where Jeffrey Tucker writes on a regular basis. And the article is called "The Case for Enduring Winter." And this is something I think that I've always experienced as well, but never quite articulated, or at least not in this way. And I like the way that he articulates this. And I've got a lot of news topics saved in my topics lists, but I wanted to bring you something for the first episode of the year that was more enduring, more lasting, and I think we'll leave you with some thoughts that sort of reshape the way you think about the seasons. So let's get into the article. "The Case for Enduring Winter" by Jeffrey Tucker, and this was published yesterday, January 7th, 2025. He says, People of a certain class and income prefer to escape New England winters for Florida beaches. It's their right and wholly understandable. But something is lost when taking the opportunity. They lose the opportunity to experience winter. Isn't that the whole point? Yes, of course, but something has bugged me about the idea of escaping seemingly bad times and attempting to game the system so that it is sunny year round. Here comes the beach in January. We lose the experience of the seasons. We lose the experience of battling the elements. We lose the awareness of the cyclical patterns in nature. We lose living through nature's greatest metaphor for the ups and downs of life itself. Think about how much poetry, painting, and music has centered on celebrating the changing seasons as a metaphor for many aspects of the human experience. It can be seen to symbolize the passage of life from the spring of youth to the winter of death, or it can be rendered as a commentary on the normal ebb and flow of good and bad tidings. These are the linear interpretations, but there is also the biggest possible interpretation of the seasons as a mysterious reflection of the recycling of time and eternity, as perhaps Eastern philosophy might frame it. Regardless, it seems just aesthetically and philosophically wrong to cut out the most objectionable of the seasons of life and expect all the rest to unfold exactly according to one's own script. No matter how we look at it, some crucial features of the experience of life itself are lost if we are denied the experience of winter. Think of the literary titles and lines alone: The Winter's Tale, The Winter of Our Discontent, Winter is Coming, Winter Dreams, and so on. The use of the term winter has long been invoked as a time of suffering. Indeed, it is. And yet, our cultural history has long struggled to find ways to celebrate winter as something necessary, even celebratory. It's all about figuring out ways to survive and thrive, even to the point of inventing means of keeping up hope in darkest times. Consider the storied tulip, for example, which has been variously treated as the most valuable flowering plant. They are planted deep in the soil in the fall with a great awareness of what is coming. There they rest during the long, dark months. We wait. We wait, but we know the time will come when they spring forth and bloom with the most gorgeous colors. The act of planting them so much earlier than when they appear is an expression of faith, a tribute to the virtue of patience, and a vote of confidence that the seasons will unfold in regular patterns on which we can depend. It is a bow of deference to that which we cannot control but can beautify. Just as in life, as sadness and disappointment yield to joy and triumph, so too winter turns to spring. The planting of tulips is a liturgy of affirmation that life is governed by seasonality, literally, emotionally, and philosophically. Think of the many ways in which winter has given rise to a kind of emotional taming. Christmastide ended up in winter as a way to catechize the tradition of marking the winter solstice, the shortest and darkest day of the year that marks the gradual return of the sun to bathe the world in light and warmth, melt away the snow, and give new life to that which died in the cold. The allegory is as obvious as it is brilliant. The sun god becomes the Son of God. There is no redemption without suffering, however. What the winter foreshadows is fulfilled in crucifixion and resurrection. The story is compelling because it connects so closely with our life experience. Can we do without winter? We cannot. We should not. In our personal lives, it is a time for retreating indoors, snuggling up in wool blankets, drinking hot drinks, reflecting on spiritual matters, catching up on our reading, contemplating the meaning of all things. This does not happen in other in the other seasons because there are too many options. Winter forces us to examine life. It also forces creativity. How in the world can we get out and about, see friends, entertain ourselves in this ungodly weather? We figure out interesting ways and look forward to repeating them, making them a habit once it is warm. Maybe it is an evening of board games, a bundled up meeting in the park with pets, or a movie outing. After all, we've gone to Herculean efforts to romanticize winter in music and film. Christmas in Connecticut, Holiday Inn, White Christmas, It's a Wonderful Life, and so on. All present idealized visions of snowy lawns, streets, and rooftops, along with working chimneys and family celebrations. Many songs of the Christmas season are really just peons to winter. Sleigh bells ring, are you listening? In the lane, snow is glistening. A beautiful sight, we're happy tonight, walking in a winter wonderland. See, it's not so bad. You just have to buck up, prepare, give it a go, and find ways to discover joy, even in the unbearable cold and unpassable snow. We've even invented skiing and ice skating to bring sport into most unsporting times. A great New England tradition gets no attention because it is so much part of the culture, namely the fascinating ritual of plowing. Men with trucks hook up the snow plows and get busy from the early morning hours, such that by the start of business, every road is passable as if nothing happened. It's a marvel to behold, truly, and grants to men a true role that technology has otherwise denied them, the chance to beat back nature as its master and commander. I swear to you that New England men adore this job, even if they engage in ritual complaints about it. It's the same with sidewalks. They are mostly clear by mid-morning, without exception, and most neighborhoods have some one or several examples of community-minded younger adults out there shoveling snow from the walkways of the elderly and the widows. It's inspiring and beautiful to see the community in action. It's all about refusing to accept defeat, as if in battle, a time when masculine virtues shine as essential to community functioning. That said, the feminine also has a role in preparing beautiful homes, implausibly wonderful on the inside as a counterposition to the terror outside, operating as living proof that humankind can invent ways to overcome. Winter also reminds us of mortality and its inevitability. From dust we came, to dust we shall return. The flowers and leaves vanish and turn back into soil as preparation for new life on the other side of the seasonal shifts. We cannot have one without the other. The winter yin to the summer yang, with two transitional seasons in between. The human experience has learned to love all four and rhapsodize about them. From the Epic of Gilgamesh, 2100 BC, to Vivaldi's Four Seasons. To every popular love song today, seasons are essential to the story of life itself, with winter occupying a distinct role. There is no world in which life is without suffering, and so too do the cycles of nature need bitter cold to make possible the warmth of the summer sun. Those who recognize this will adapt their thinking and find ways to discover joy even in the darkness and cold. Escape to Florida if you wish and can afford it, but I'm telling you, you are missing out on something wonderful and even magical. And hey, everyone knows that winter fashions are the best. Bundle up and invent ways to enjoy it all. So there you go. There's the article by Jeffrey Tucker, The Case for Enduring Winter. And I love the symbolism here. And I think that as he alludes to it, it's applicable in so many different contexts. He talks about the death and resurrection of Christ. He talks about Christmas. He talks about, the tulips. It talks about the way that men, find purpose and meaning in fighting against nature by plowing the roads and shoveling the sidewalks, and how women can create a place of warmth and comfort and delight despite a world of terror outside. And he also alludes to this ebb and flow of good and bad. And this is something that he referenced Eastern philosophy, but something that's referenced in Greek and Western philosophy as well. And that's just this cyclical nature of what they sometimes discussed in the context of the cosmos, but also just the cyclical nature of life. And we all experience highs and lows, sadness and happiness, joy and desperation. And I love how the seasons are representative of that cyclical nature of life. And I live in southern Indiana. It's not one of the most spectacularly beautiful areas like the Rocky Mountains or the beach, if you prefer the beach and the ocean. I'm more of a mountain person myself. But it's beautiful in its own way, in that we do have these, what I consider to be complete seasons, where you have hot, sometimes miserably hot and humid summers. You have beautiful and colorful falls. You have portions of winter that are somewhat harsh, but not like the Dakotas or northern Michigan. But we just experienced a winter storm with a foot of snow and nearly a half inch of ice. So we've been cooped up for the last few days here in southern Indiana for that reason. So this was in the forefront of my mind, and I think great timing, even though he's referring to New England here. I think it very easily applies to southern Indiana and much of the Ohio River Valley at this time. So I like like I said, I like the meaning that he derives from the change of the seasons here. And I hope that this gives you some food for thought, but I think that it's something to bear in mind, even, in day-to-day life too, when you find yourself in a season where you're struggling, or find yourself in a season where you're experiencing incredible joy. If you know ahead of time that this season is likely to pass, you'll be more prepared, if you're in a joyous season, to take head on that season of seemingly harsh or defeat times, or if you're in a time of in a low point in your life, that there's the season of joy and happiness at the end. If you find a way to plow the snow, if you find a way to make your home warm and beautiful, those symbols, I think, can be true in other areas of your life. And I was thinking, actually, just earlier today, I picked up my son from my in-laws, and my father-in-law made the comment that he was sitting on the couch with my son, his grandson. They had their fireplace going, and he could see snow falling down outside. And he made the comment that, that was one of the best times. It was a time of relaxation, a time of comfort and joy, a time to escape from the busyness of life and retreat to the things that have true meaning, eternal meaning. And that's family, that's the home, and that's a place where you can appreciate the world and the beauty that's in it, whether that's the fire or the falling snow or your grandchild or what have you. So, like I said, this article struck me. I hope it has some meaning to you as well. I've got a quote here that I want to end with, and then we'll close up this episode. It's a quote from C.S. Lewis, and it's a quote from the Collected Letters of C.S. Lewis, Volume 2. And the quote is this: "It is one of the evils of rapid diffusion of news that the sorrows of all the world come to us every morning. I think each village was meant to feel pity for its own sick and poor, whom it can help. And I doubt if it is the duty of any private person to fix his mind on ills which he cannot help. This may even become an escape from the works of charity we really can do to those we know. A great many people do now think that the mere state of being worried is in itself meritorious. I don't think it is. We must, if it so happens, give our lives for others, but even while we are doing it, I think we're meant to enjoy our Lord, and in Him, our friends, our food, our sleep, your jokes, and the bird's song, and the frosty sunrise. And I think this quote fits nicely with this article that I've just shared. In the quote, he's talking about, he begins about the evils of the rapid diffusion of news. Think about how we're constantly barraged with news, wherever your source of news is, whether it's X or Facebook or YouTube or Fox News or CNN or what have you, the New York Times, the Washington Post. You're getting news, you're being bombarded with news from far away places. Even if it's in the United States, it may be news from California. There's lots of news today about the wildfires in California, or news about the Arctic storm that just passed through the Ohio River Valley. But this bombardment, I think, causes us to worry about things that we cannot change. And it may be something even more distant, something like the war on terrorism in the Middle East. That's a concern that the nation has, right? And that's something that I think the nation can't really change. The nation has many problems here. The country, the United States government, has lots of problems here that are still unsolved. And I think that this applies not only at the government level, but also at the individual level as well. We have only so much power to affect change and to help people in our immediate circle, that the bombardment of news and information from faraway places causes us to lose focus on the things that are here and now and around us. And like he says here at the end, I think we're meant to enjoy our Lord, and in Him, our friends, our food, our sleep, your jokes, and the bird song and the frosty sunrise. So I wish you a happy new year. I hope that you can focus not only on the seasons of your life, but on the things that you have control over. And this is sort of a stoic mindset. And I think one that C.S. Lewis points out here: focus on the things you can control, where you can truly make a difference, whether that's your neighbor or in your community or in your work or in your family. Focus on the things where you can truly have an impact. And I think if you do that, I think that goes along with the theme of the Forge of Freedom, which I'm going to end with here. I haven't said it used to be part of our intro, but in an effort to shorten the podcast, I cut it out of the intro. I may get back to that. I don't know, but I want to share it here at the end. At the Forge of Freedom, we believe that freedom is the highest political goal, and we believe that individuals thrive where freedom and personal responsibility coexist. Without a populace that shares a passion for freedom and personal responsibility, the world can quickly devolve into tyranny. And it is our hope that this podcast can help motivate our listeners and those around them to create and preserve freedom for themselves and for future generations. But the task of creating and preserving freedom is not an easy one. Freedom is not given to us by government, and it is not passed on in the bloodstream. Freedom is forged through personal responsibility and continued vigilance. And we want to motivate you and equip you with the knowledge, the skills, and the attitude to develop your body, mind, and soul for the task of living a freer life and creating a freer world. We want you to have the body of an athlete, the mind of a stoic, and the spirit of a warrior. We want you to be the Forge of Freedom. All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the episode. As always, you can find us on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and X at Forge of Freedom. You can also find us at forgeoffreedom.com. And until next time, remember, you are the Forge of Freedom.